NBC Monitor News on the Hour, brought to you by Ford. Now is the time to see your Ford dealer, the guy who gives you so many ways to save. Now, here is Dean Mell.
President Nixon has proposed that the United States begin planning a grand tour of 5 planets by unmanned space vehicles during this decade. A statement issued from the Florida White House today said the planets Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto will be in positions that offer a unique opportunity to cover them all in one 3-billion-mile sweep. Eventually, America plans to put men on Mars, but no timetable has been set for manned explorations beyond the Apollo Moon series. The relentless travels of Sun, Moon, and Earth through space are producing a rare phenomenon that millions of people on the North American continent already have begun to observe. It is the first solar eclipse in 47 years, and nowhere in this age of Aquarius is the event being given a more festive reception than in Florida. A report from Brian Smith of station WRUF in Gainesville.
The city of Perry, Florida, is the site of the congregation of over 60,000 people today to view the solar eclipse. A heavy cloud cover has obscured much of the viewing. However, the city has set up viewing stands, tents to house out-of-towners, and the city schools have prepared boxed lunches and sandwiches to be sold at the viewing areas. North Central Florida will view a total eclipse lasting about 3.5 minutes, starting at 1:18 Eastern Time. Special precautions have been taken by people in the area to prevent eye damage. The city is supplying viewing devices. Florida Governor Claude Kirk has proclaimed Perry the eclipse capital of the world. Scientists and viewers alike are just hoping for some slight clearing, but the weatherman isn't optimistic. This is Brian Smith from WRUF in Gainesville for NBC News.
An early thaw brings another avalanche in the Alps. That story and more news after this from Ford.
America is becoming value conscious. People want more for their money. And who's one of the leading forces behind it? Your Ford dealer. Proof. Who introduced the low-price Maverick and created the public's interest in American-made economy of performance? Your Ford dealer. Further proof. While everybody else was raising prices all across the line, your Ford dealer held the price on Maverick, the simple machine. And now your Ford dealer is introducing a simple, sporty car, Maverick Grabber, for a little more. Oh, yes, the Grabber looks like an expensive, sporty car with its sleek black hood, body tape stripes, dual racing mirrors, and 14-inch white walls. But don't be fooled, America, because what it doesn't offer is high insurance rates, high gas bills, high maintenance cost. It's all Maverick. Yes, America has become value conscious. And who's the man right in your own community that recognizes this? Your Ford dealer. See him today.
Now's the time to save at your Ford dealers. No matter what you want in a car, you're sure to find it at your Ford dealers. Once again, Dean Mell.
Rising temperatures have begun to thaw snowbound Central Europe, renewing the threat of avalanche dangers in the Alps. A snowslide today buried a platoon of Italian soldiers on the slope of a Dolomite peak near Bolzano. 7 were killed and at least 8 were injured. Michigan Republican leaders meeting in Lansing today have agreed to support the candidacy of Lenore Romney for senator in the August primary. Their nearly unanimous backing of Housing Secretary George Romney's wife was in contrast to a meeting 2 weeks ago when Mrs. Romney failed to gain the necessary 75% support as a consensus candidate. A State Department spokesman says he is satisfied that the Guatemalan government is doing everything it can to obtain the safe release of an American embassy official who was kidnapped by Guatemalan rebels yesterday. They say their hostage will be killed unless the Guatemalan government releases 4 guerrilla leaders. More in a moment.
The facts about the 1970 Torino.
A whole line of cars that won Motor Trend magazine's Car of the Year competition.
And facts favor Ford.
With Torino's 117-inch wheelbase for easy handling.
A track that's wider that lets you grip the road more tightly.
Standard belted tires that last up to 40% longer than old.
A steering wheel that locks when you turn off the ignition.
A new wind-sculptured, low-drag silhouette.
The 1970 Ford Torino. Voted Car of the Year by Motor Trend magazine.
With new sound-absorbing insulation.
A passenger train jumped the tracks and crashed into a pedestrian bridge near Durban, South Africa. First reports say 5 persons were killed and 100 injured. First Soviet reaction to President Nixon's statement on Laos described it as an attempt to represent the affair as limited interference and not a dangerous intervention. TASS concluded that Mr. Nixon's statement satisfied nobody, not even congressmen. A Lebanese lawyer claims President Nasser has fired 250 Egyptian judges because they insisted on judicial freedom from political influence. The informant said he had received unconfirmed reports that some of the judges are in jail. Again, the hour's top story. As millions of North Americans anticipate a rare solar eclipse this afternoon, President Nixon proposes a 3 billion-mile unmanned space flight to 5 sister planets during this decade. Dane Mell, NBC News, reporting.
Listen again on the hour when Ford, with 50 new models for 1970, brings you NBC Monitor News.
$1.5 million federal grant and an additional $3.25 million loan has been approved for a Charlotte urban renewal project. In other news of the region, a Charlotte family says it's great news to learn that their son is alive, even though he is listed as a North Vietnamese prisoner of war. About 1,200 North Carolina Democrats are in Raleigh today for the Jefferson Jackson Day activities. And first in the news, persons in eastern North Carolina are ready for the total eclipse of the sun in just less than an hour. WPTF will have a special report at 1:30 from News Director Bob Farrington. Safety precautions must be taken in the event that you are to watch this eclipse. For a report on the safety precautions needed, we talked with Anthony Genzano, the director of the Moorhead Planetarium.
I subscribe to the filtration method only if the person using the filter, and this applies equally to photographic work or telescope work or naked eye observing with protective devices, that only if the person knows that the type of film that he's using or the type of filler he's using and that the prescribed method has been followed very carefully, should he then risk using it. And then only in fleeting glances. Under no circumstances, even with protective devices, should anyone ever look for long periods. And when you say long periods in this connection, we're talking about, like 30 or 40 seconds.
Right.
We're able to see this live on color television, and I dare say that the equipment that they will be using will give them a much clearer shot of the sun than any protective device on any kind of equipment that will be used on Earth and will be looking through the density of the atmosphere. I would much rather see a live color total eclipse on television than I would see a partial eclipse in nature. Even with protective devices, I wouldn't stand a chance of seeing as clear and spectacular a picture as I know television will present for us.
Anthony Genzano, the director of the Moorhead Planetarium. The weather for the Raleigh-Durham area, fair and mild this afternoon with a high near 57. Fair and cool tonight with a low around 35. Sunday, partly cloudy and little change in temperature with a high around 60. The probability of precipitation near 0 this afternoon and tonight, and 10% on Sunday. Under partly cloudy skies at the Raleigh-Durham Airport, the present temperature 51 degrees, relative humidity 52%. Next scheduled news on this station at 1:55. Another service of WPTF News. Good afternoon now, and welcome to the program called This Afternoon. This is Solar Eclipse 1970 Day. All across eastern North Carolina, Bob Farrington is on the Watts line right now, and we'll be talking with him in just about a minute. Stay tuned. This afternoon, from now until 1:55, here on WPTF Radio. That's the Brass Ring with the tune called The Theme from The Odd Couple. 11.5 minutes past the hour of 1 o'clock. We have Bob Farrington on the Watts line, our news director here at WPTF. Bob, is it dark in Wallace yet?
Yes, it is really beginning to show the signs that the eclipse will be total in about, 25 minutes from now. It's over halfway across the sun's surface now, and the hundreds of people gathered here at Wallace Airport have more than one thing to see in the sky. As you probably can hear in the background now, Gary, there's one of those famous Benson gyrocopters from Raleigh being flown by Bob Nesbitt, a good friend of ours from up in Charlotte, putting on a demonstration now. So the solar eclipse has a little bit of competition, and I suspect that Bob's gyrations in the sky are tempting more than a few people to literally take that step and look directly into the sun, because now the eclipse is more than 50% complete. As a matter of fact, it is really beginning to evidence itself in shadows and in the general atmosphere. And you may be interested to know of some other things here, Gary. There's sort of a circus atmosphere involved. We mentioned on our earlier report that several hundred Boy Scouts have set up camp 150 yards from where we're talking now, and they've got any kind of telescope you could think of with all kinds of filters so that they can see the eclipse. Near them are a group of scientists, some from Huntsville, Alabama, and Houston, Texas, many from up in the Indiana area who've come down here to this wide open space to watch the eclipse. And then a little bit over to the side, there is what is advertised as the world's largest brood sow in a great big black pen with high fence around it, and a couple of barkers out in front inviting anyone to get an eyeful for only 25 cents apiece. So as you can see, it has taken on sort of a circus atmosphere here.
I want you to do me a favor, Bob. Bring me a piece of moon pie, would you?
Yeah? Well, I mentioned that earlier, too, I think. I don't remember whether I said anything about it on the air or not, but there's a farm implement place up in Rose Hill that has a big sign out in front that says as soon as the eclipse is over, we're having a moon pie party. In Wilson, there's a shopping center which is holding an eclipse sale today. Actually, I hadn't noticed it until it was just drawn to my attention. My son is walking by now carrying everybody's coat. As the eclipse continues, it is visibly getting cooler here. I hadn't expected that.
Well, are there many scientists and otherwise official people there in the area?
Well, yes, they start here. I mentioned there's a band of them in my line of sight. I guess they're 100 yards away or so with all kinds of interesting apparatus. I don't know exactly what they're doing. But the scientists become more concentrated to the north of here, especially at East Carolina University, where they have set up quite an observatory out in Pinklin Stadium. That wide open space is being employed as being able to see this without the encumbrances of trees, etc. around. But an airport like here at Wallace is almost perfect. And it's beginning to get uncanny here as the eclipse becomes more and more complete. I can literally see how it's getting darker here. And legend has it that when the total eclipse occurs, the cows will come home and the chickens will go to roost. And I really don't doubt it. I'm beginning to get that feeling.
Well, you know, this is a very special day for space, I guess you would say. The president has announced a great space tour to take place sometime in the end of the decade, and I understand that there was quite an announcement at East Carolina University. How about that?
They are today to build a $300,000 planetarium observatory combination. The architecture of it is quite striking. It has the dome, of course, for the planetarium display, but right beside it, it will have an observatory, and it looks like it's going to be quite a structure. And they have a $100,000 grant to get started with, and they're going to have to collect $200,000 in matching funds before construction can start.
Well, totality will be in what, about 15, 16 minutes?
That's according to the schedule, shortly after 1:30 this afternoon. So
And
it's getting darker and darker and darker, and it's really becoming quite a fascinating subject. People are beginning to cluster around, and you can see they're really getting whipped up in it. And somebody's been passing around double sets of cards so that you can use the little projection technique to see it, but unfortunately they cut the holes in the cards too big. So we all have our little pieces of trouble down here.
you're going to be along at 1:30, aren't you?
As soon as we get right up to totality, I'll be ringing you back again.
All right, we'll be talking with you then, sir.
Thank you so much.
All righty, bye-bye.
If you're traveling to a place in the sun or driving anywhere at all, go easy. Stop at Stuckey's. You relax, refresh, and refuel with just one pleasant stop. And you can treat yourself to those fabulous Stuckey's pecan candies, rich and delectable as homemade. Stuckey's, on the road to good times all over America.
Relax, refresh, refuel at Stuckey's.
The Moorhead Planetarium in Chapel Hill has a suggestion for those who wish to see the eclipse of the sun. It is dangerous to eyesight to look directly at the sun, so the planetarium advises that the viewer stand with his back to the sun, with the light falling over his shoulder onto two pieces of white cardboard. Make a pinhole in the piece of cardboard nearest the sun, and the eclipse will show through the hole and onto the second piece of cardboard. The pieces of cardboard should be held about a foot apart. This message from the Moorhead Planetarium in Chapel Hill. 17 and a half minutes past 1 o'clock. Here's John Gary.
I wish I had a big, big camera. I'd hang it up in space and take a family photograph of the whole human race. Watch the birdie and everybody say peace. Everybody say peace. To make the whole world smile, everybody say peace. Well, now I'd gather everyone together and line them up in rows. I check the film and set the lens and shout, hold that pose. Watch the birdie and everybody say peace. Everybody say peace. To make the whole world smile, everybody say peace. Everyone a copy so everyone could see. If that's the way it happened once, it's the way it could always be. Watch the birdie and everybody say peace. Everybody say peace. To make the whole world smile, everybody say peace. And everybody say peace. Everybody say peace. To make the whole world smile, everybody say peace. And everybody say peace. Everybody say peace.
John Gary and Everybody Say Peace. 20 minutes past 1 o'clock is our time here on the program called This Afternoon. Join the 27,000 visitors who come to the United Nations every week. Here there are marvelous things to do and see. But best of all are the things you feel when you see people from 122 countries working together day by day for peace. A trip to the United Nations is educational and inspirational. It's also great fun. For a free UN guidebook, write to UNA USA, New York 10017. Come to United Nations headquarters in New York. Earlier, WPTF talked with Anthony Genzano at the Morehead Planetarium, and he told us exactly what a solar eclipse is.
The moon is passing between the sun and the earth, and it's eclipsing our view of the sun. And the length of time that it eclipses it, of course, depends on the relative positions of the three bodies, one to the other. The more distant the sun and or the moon, then the difference in the time it takes for its shadow to pass over a given location. And the time of totality can be from nothing to 7.5 minutes. This particular eclipse will be total for about 3 minutes for those who are in the eclipse path, which is about 85 miles wide and runs diagonally up the coast of North Carolina. There's nothing as spectacular as eclipse in totality. Now, any percentage of that, no matter how large, it could be 99.999%, really has no spectacle to it. The spectacle being the instant of totality when the corona and the Baily beads and the other colorful effects, the red flare, appear to those who have protected devices and are able to view it or are watching it on television.
Anthony Genzano, the director of the Morehead Planetarium in Chapel Hill. 22 past the hour. We'll have more music on this afternoon right after this important message.
Esso helps your car stay young. Esso Extra gasoline helps the car you're driving feel alive and fun. Young is the name of the game when it's all said and done. Esso helps your car stay young.
The world's largest petroleum research organization designed 12 extra performance features into Esso Extra, like an extra wintertime shot of high volatility hydrocarbons, so your Esso Extra ignites extra easy for faster, easier starts in cold weather.
Esso helps your car stay young. Esso helps your car stay young. Esso helps your car stay young.
What is it that we're living for? Applause, applause. Nothing I know brings on the glow like sweet applause. You're thinking you're through, that nobody cares. Then suddenly you hear it starting, and somehow you're in charge again, and it's a ball. Trumpets all sing, life seems to swing, and you're the king of it all, 'cause you've had a taste of the sound that says love. Applause, applause, applause. You're thinking you're through, that nobody cares. Then suddenly you hear it starting. It makes you feel so good again when they want more. Cares disappear as soon as you hear that happy audience roar. 'Cause you've got a taste of the sound that says love. Applause, applause, applause. You've had a taste of the sound that says love. Applause, applause.
Carolyn May and a little thing called Applause. 25 and a half past the hour of 1 here on the program called This Afternoon.
Many beer drinkers we've talked to asked us for a lighter beer with plenty of good beer taste. Our answer was Heidelberg Light Pilsner.
It's refreshing, not too filling, and it'll do the job.
Heidelberg. It's light when it goes down. That's where it's important.
I took it. Heidelberg was a good beer. Right straight through. It's about the best.
Give Heidelberg a try. You have to taste it to believe it.
Here are a couple of special reminders here on WPTF Radio. A program this evening called Nighttime comes your way. Music for Radio's Magic Hours, a nightly collection of bright arrangements of music for night people. Starting at midnight, listen to Nighttime right here on WPTF. And don't forget about the big ACC Championship game, the ACC tournament down in Charlotte. Tonight at 8:15, the Gamecocks of South Carolina take on the Wolfpack of North Carolina State University. Bill Jackson and Wally Osley will be right there to bring you all the exciting action from Charlotte. That's this evening at 8:15, right here on WPTF Radio. Hear the Craig Hundley Trio and a tune called Traces taking us up to news headlines and weather time. And don't forget, we'll have a special report on the total eclipse of the solar sun 1970 from Bob Farrington. That'll be coming your way at 1:30. Solar eclipse. Stay tuned, won't you? From the wires of the Associated Press and WPTF News, here's a check on the latest in world and national news headlines, plus a look at the weather. The total eclipse of the sun has begun in the United States. The first of the shadows fell over Florida, then moved northeastward. It swept on over Georgia and then headed northward over parts of the Carolinas, Virginia, and then on to Massachusetts. President Nixon has announced plans for an unmanned spacecraft tour of the outer planets later this decade. An avalanche in the Dolomite Alps has killed at least 7 Italian soldiers and injured at least 8 others. Malaysia and Thailand have signed an agreement widening military cooperation against pro-communist guerrillas along their common border. Vice President Agnew says inner-city ghetto dwellers must have access to the jobs and housing of the suburbs. The weather for the Raleigh-Durham area: fair and mild this afternoon with a high near 57, fair and cool tonight with a low around 35. Sunday, partly cloudy and little change in temperature with a high around 60. The probability of precipitation near 0 this afternoon and tonight, 10% on Sunday. Under partly cloudy skies at the Raleigh-Durham Airport, the present temperature 51 degrees, the relative humidity 52%. This is WPTF Radio, Raleigh, North Carolina, where it's 1:30.